the bong and watch King Kong. Old movies for young stoners. Old movies for young stoners.
There are movies. Movies made before you were born. Before even your parents were born. They are films enjoyed by your grandparents in dark, single-screen movie theaters or late at night on broadcast television. Thumbnail images hyping these films stare back at you as you browse through Tubi, Prime, and Pluto. Many are in black and white. Others don't even have sound. Many of them look trippy and weird. They have titles like Duck Soup, Spider Baby, Touch of Evil. You want to watch one of these movies, but which one? There are so many.
Don't worry, we're here to sort through it all and help you find the right movie to watch.
And we'll pair it with the right cannabis strain to send you on your trip through movie history.
This week, we are going dark as fuck with the inescapable fatalism of the film noir classic Detour from 1945 and director Sam Fuller's shocking and subversive neo-noir, The Naked Kiss from nearly 20 years later. Start your cinematic journey on the wrong side of town, right here on Old Movies for Young Stoners. We have returned for our shocking 7th episode of Old Movies for Young Stoners. I am Bob Calhoun, author of The Murders That Made Us, a true crime history of the San Francisco Bay Area, available wherever tawdry trade paperbacks are sold. Find out more at murdersthatmadeus.com. We have a special guest this week, but first, let me introduce our young stoners. She is an actor and voice talent appearing in Chippendale Rescue Rangers, now streaming on Disney+. She is Felina Franklin.
Woo! Thank you. Also known as fan number 1 on Rescue Rangers, which you can watch now.
It feels like we've been saying it's coming soon for like months now.
But it's here.
And then we have co-founder of the show and your guide on the Hollywood Punk Rock Graveyard Tour. Search for it on Facebook or find it on Instagram at Punk Rock Graveyard Tour. He is Corey Sklar.
Hey, everybody. I feel like getting really tight tonight.
Hey, you know, what? Greg Franklin, what are you doing here?
I'm not on assignment. I'm off assignment. It feels great to be free of assignments.
That's co-founder of the show, Greg Franklin, co-founder of 6 Point Harness Studios, director of Tig Notaro Drawn, all that stuff.
Co-founder of Felina Franklin.
Co-founder of Felina Franklin, yes.
It's true.
I have co-founded many things.
And this week, we have a special guest. He is the manager of the movie section at Torn Right Records in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the programmer of the cult movie film series at Cincinnati's Esquire Theatre at 320 Ludlow Avenue. They're showing The Harder They Come on May 25th, and they've got a pretty sweet sword and sandal series going right now. Let's meet the man behind it. Welcome to the podcast, Justin Wiese.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm a big fan of the show.
Yeah, and thanks for being on the show. What draws you to Old Movies for Young Stoners? What brings you here?
Well, I really like the mission statement of your podcast, trying to get younger people into older movies. There's a lot of discourse online these days about not watching films if they're like pre-1980. There's writers that get articles published about films that confess that they refuse to watch old movies and that all old movies are bad. And I think that if you limit when you're watching or what eras you're consuming art, you're just playing yourself. So I'm glad to be on this show because movies and weed are two things that I care a lot about. So
Well said.
You know, you're from Cincinnati, and there are some fans of Cincinnati's regional cuisine, the chili.
Yes.
Yes. What do you have to say for Cincinnati's chili?
I like Cincinnati chili. I understand that like describing it is probably off-putting to a lot of people, but I've always been a fan. I'm not a huge Skyline guy. I prefer some of like the mom and pop restaurants around town. Shout out to Blue Ash Chili, Pleasant Ridge Chili, and my favorite name, Chili Time.
Oh, it's chili time right now. I
Chili time.
didn't even think that there was mom and pop places that I could discover there. I'm never going to go to Skyline. I'm just going to try out these mom and pop places when I finally do my Cincinnati chili tour of Cincinnati.
Corey,
I'm
there
waiting.
is one. There's one in Burbank.
What?
There's Skyline. You can not a Skyline. It's called Chili John's.
Oh, Chili
And
John's has Cincinnati chili. I've always wanted to go
That's
there.
the kind of chili that they have.
Oh, I can't wait.
You get it with your spaghetti noodles, your oyster crackers, your pound of cheddar cheese on top. It's amazing.
Thank you so
Raw
much for letting me know. Then, like, Burbank is like the chili capital of SoCal. There's also Larry's Chili Dog there, which is so good. Justin, I can't wait till you come to LA. I'll give you the chili tour of Los Angeles, of Burbank specifically.
Any of you guys come to Cincinnati and I'll give you the chili tour of Cincinnati. My favorite place, Blue Ash Chili, they have this chili dog called the Lizard, where instead of a hot dog in the bun, it is a fried pickle spear. And it's
Oh, that rocks.
And this place is called Blue Ass Chili.
Blue Ash.
Okay, got it. Okay, I thought it was like an Avatar tie-in.
Justin, you know, you're a fan of cinema. You're a fan of films from all different eras. Can you name some of your favorite directors, actors, genres, just so we get a feel for who you are as a cineast?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as genres go, I'm a big fan of these sort of poverty row film noir that we're talking about on the show today with Detour. Big fan of spaghetti westerns, big fan of 70s kung fu movies, and favorite directors, Lucio Fulci, William Peter Blatty, Orson Welles, Duke Mitchell. So those are some of my favorite guys right there, yeah.
Now, I know you don't work at the Esquire Theatre as a regular employee. You're not a projectionist there or working the concession stand, but I assume you go in and out of the place a bit, programming there. I want to do a lightning round before we get started with our film selections of today. I want to do a lightning round of current films that are playing at the Esquire Theatre or have played there recently. So I want you to give me your weed pairing with these movies.
I'll try my best, Bob.
First, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, I actually saw this high. What did I have? I had some cannabis-infused gummies. I had it was sativa dominant gummies, and I took a couple of them. And so I would probably recommend that for that movie. There's a lot to pay attention to because stuff is flying at you real fast.
Okay, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I would probably recommend something similar, a sativa, probably, to keep track of everything that's going on.
Okay, The Northman.
Indica. Heavy duty indica.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of stoner friendly movies playing, both very, very mainstream and kind of indie-wood movies playing in theaters right now that you can catch. There's also that Nick Cage thing, which I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't one I chose, and I think that's at the Esquire right now too.
Which is super stony, like very post Charlie Kaufman, let's smoke weed and write movies kind of thing. Yeah, it's a really good time to be a stoner and go to the theater right now, I gotta say.
Yeah, even if your theater is like the one closest to me and all out of 16 screens, 12 are playing Doctor Strange, you can still get stoned and see that. We have a couple of plays in the Russian Federation, which probably means that we are breaking international sanctions with this show right now.
No.
Hey, in the interests of world peace, Greg, if we can get more Russians and more Americans, it could be like the stoner version of Rocky IV here.
Well, if we have any listeners in the Ukraine, I want to say congratulations on winning Eurovision. It was a lot of competition this year, but you guys pulled through. My favorite song was from Serbia. Everyone look it up. It's really cool.
If you're in the Russian Federation, or if you're in Stockholm, Sweden, or Canberra, Australia, or Pakistan, we have listeners in all these places, or in the good old US of A, or Winnipeg, Canada, if you're in the Peg, please reach out to us. Felina, how can they do that?
We at Old Movies for Young Stoners really want to hear from you. You can email us at oldmoviesforyoungstoners@gmail.com. That's oldmoviesforyoungstoners@gmail. All one word, no numbers. And you can join us on Instagram at Old Movies for Young Stoners. If there's a classic film that you're curious about or a strain that you're really into, please let us know.
If you shut up and don't give me any arguments, you'll have nothing to worry about. But if you act wise, well, mister, you'll pop into jail so fast it'll give you the bends. Where did you leave his body?
I told her everything, but she didn't believe my story. I should have saved my breath. But as much as I insisted I would have no part of her scheme, Vera was taking it for granted I would.
Do I rate a whistle?
You sure do. My goose was cooked. She had...
In our first film, Tom Neal as sadsack Al Roberts thumbs a ride across the country to get back to his fiancée, only to thrust himself into a tragedy of errors on a long stretch of dusty desert highway. Just when he thinks things can't get any worse, he crosses paths with Anne Savage's Vera, the venom-spitting queen cobra of all film noir, and she puts him through hell while giving him a master class on just how bad things can get. Made on a slimmer than a shoestring budget by Poverty Row auteur Edgar Ulmer, we have a real gateway drug to classic cinema here with Detour from 1945. Now, Justin, you when we started the podcast, you emailed Corey and you made some suggestions of some films, and one of the filmmakers you wanted us to profile was Ulmer, Edgar Ulmer, and you mentioned Detour as well as The Black Cat. So this is your pick. So why don't you tell us how you feel about it? Tell us a little something about it.
Yeah, so I think that you nailed that when you say that it's a real good gateway drug to classic cinema, because it's a little weirder than other films of its type. It's very short. It's only 66 minutes long, so it's an easy watch. It's just a breeze. And I'm a big fan of Ulmer. I think that he's one of the best examples of a director doing a lot with very little. I think the budget for Detour was only like 30 grand, maybe, which is just tiny, but he makes the best use out of, like, if he has a scene that's supposed to take place in New York City, he doesn't have the money to make a New York City set, so what does he do? He just pumps a bunch of fog in there and just has him walk through a big cloud. It says, yep, that's New York City. I think he's a fascinating...
That's what I did with my living room, by the way, is I pumped it full of smoke and watched the entire film through that. So...
I was waiting for that joke. I was waiting for that on this episode. But yeah, like you said, I'm a huge fan of The Black Cat. It's probably my favorite Universal horror movie. His film with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, the only movie that he got a big budget, really. After that movie, he pretty much was just in like Poverty Row Studios, like PRC. And I think that all of his movies, like The Man from Planet X is a really cool science fiction movie he directed that also is just like tons of fog, just pumping it out there. Detour was the first of his movies that I saw, And I was immediately impressed with the way he uses tracking shots, like following characters around in a way that I think a lot of people that had the budget similar to him never thought to do. He has a real eye for stuff. And as far as the weed element goes, when I smoke, when I watch movies, or I consume cannabis, I notice a lot of those things a lot more. I notice the tracking shots. I'm a big visual guy, and so I can really key into what the cinematographers are doing, how the director's telling him to move the camera around. And I think Detour is just, it's a masterclass. I'm like, you watch that, and it's just, like I said before, it's proof that you can make something really special with a very low budget. And it has the fatalism of like an EC comic. The poor Al, man, he's such a loser, and the worst shit just keeps happening to him over and over and over again. And it's such a cool movie. And I think it's perfect for introducing people to older films. And it's a great jumping off point for him as a director. Most of his movies are only like an hour. So
Felina, what did you think of Detour? How did this strike you?
I had a great time watching this movie. It started off great because I saw it was like an hour and 7 minutes long. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I watched it in the morning and I smoked a hybrid. It was so nice. It was so fun to watch because I felt so relaxed watching this guy literally go through hell is so like, it sucks, but it's cool. It's so fun. The dialogue had me talking in a transatlantic accent all day. It was a good way to start the day. I felt good. I had fun.
Tell me about the introduction of Vera and like how you felt when that happened.
Oh my God. Yes. I was like, this bitch is so fun. She's so cool. And then she was like, oh, I knew who the hell are you? I was shocked. And I loved it. I had a great time.
Nice. Yeah, I am super unfamiliar with, like, this is a big hole, and this is why I'm doing this podcast. Is these old noirs such a big hole, and like people I love and respect, like Bob and you, Justin, like you guys just rattle off titles, and I'm like, I haven't seen any of these, and like you guys go to these festivals and you're like, oh, tonight they're showing this one, oh, this one, and I'm like, oh, I wish I knew about this. I'm so jealous. So thank you for this jumping off point. And I have no idea about Ulmer. I can't wait. Can we do the Black Cat sometime?
The Black Cat's definitely big on the list. It's just not, I don't think it's really available streaming, as part of a service right now, but when it turns up, it goes. Then we do some, you're going to say it's too European though, Corey. It's very,
I hate European shit.
American it's very, very Euro.
Well, let's talk about how American this movie is for real. And for a movie that takes place in Los Angeles, I was like, all right, a noir in Los Angeles. There are zero cool LA locations in this movie. It's all sets, and it's all fucking back projection in a car. There's so much back projection in this movie. One of those back projections might be Sunset Boulevard or something though. Yeah, so don't expect to see like Angel's Flight or anything cool in this movie because it ain't there. But it's like it takes place a lot in apartments, I feel like, in cars. This place. When I was watching it, I didn't realize how much I liked it at the time. I was like, whoa, this shit's low budget. Whoa, these actors are bad. Whoa, and then afterwards, it like the more I thought about it, it like really stuck with me. I'm like, well, actually, that was pretty haunting. And wait, that shot, the fiance is singing it with the shadows of the jazz band behind her. I'm like, whoa, that's like German expressionism almost. I had to really sink in because the movie happened so fast, and there's so many twists and turns, and the dialogue is so fast that it kind of just punches you in the face. I loved it. Yeah, I think it's bad acting. The sets are bad, but I ended up really loving this fucking movie. I love the character. What's his name? Ted Al. What's his name?
Al.
Thanks, Al. Yeah. I love that. I'm glad everyone agrees that he's such a sad sack, and he looks like he's crying. He's on the verge of tears the whole movie, and I don't know if that's good acting or that's just the way his face is.
It probably is good acting because the thing about Tom Neal is he was kind of a badass. He was like an ex-boxer, and he was in a love triangle with this actress. I forget what her name is. I didn't write that down. She was like dumping him for this early method actor, Franco Tone, and Neal comes in and he beat the crap out of Tone and shattered his cheekbone and really messed up his face, and he had to have primitive plastic surgery to work in Hollywood again. Whoa. And are you all sitting down? Tom Neal murdered his wife in something similar to Detour. It was his wife in the early 60s. He'd been married a few times. He was one of those kinds of guys. And his story was they were struggling for the gun. She got their handgun and it went off and she died. And the jury believed him more or less because he got off with a manslaughter charge. And
wow,
he did like 5 years and then he died like a few months later.
What? See, this is the kind of shit. This is the kind of shit that just adds to this movie. It opens with this scene where these guys, Al is just so upset. He's drinking in a diner, and he fights with this guy over a song on the jukebox, and then it's that's the framing device of how he tells the story to us. And it's a good framing device. It works really well, and he speaks really hard boiled and old school. It's really funny. I'm wondering if they're like fighting over like the most like mellow like Benny Goodman jazz shit, and I wonder it's before rock music, if like dudes like rocked out to this like doodah music, like yeah, this is the jam, because it's like the most easy listening stuff. So I don't know, but this movie is good for stoners because it's about a musician and it has a lot of music in it. And he ends up hating music, which I really relate to and love. And I don't know, he's like a musician who like who's like burned by the music industry because he just ends up being like kind of a loser piano player at a shitty jazz club, right? And doesn't he like say one time, like, I don't know, there was like this poignant line where he talks about how like he was made to feel cheap by a customer or something. Like a customer just treated him like a little like, oh, you're such a cute piano player, and he's like, I got to get out of this fucking business. And it was really cool. That's like very apt, cool line.
That's an amazing scene. I love that one because he's playing this almost like avant-garde switching, like almost a John Zorn, like switching from genre to genre, from classical to weird John Cage sounding things, and it's amazing virtuoso performance, and you're just watching him while he's going off, and everybody in this cheap little dive is just kind of talking, and the waiter comes up to a guy, and I just had the feeling like the guy was going to be like, give this guy $10 to fucking stop, like please stop. But he was instead just kind of giving him a little, like, just a $10 tip.
And just the musical aspect of like being kind of a scorned or a jaded artist adds another layer to this movie. I think is so cool. It's like the Red Shoes kind of, and like fuck right. La La Land. This is the LA jazz movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a better version of La La Land.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about Vera. So who's the actress that plays Vera?
And her name is Anne Savage, and she's definitely savage. I mean,
damn,
she spits her lines. I hate you. I hate you. You did it.
It's like silly. It's silly acting, but it's so fun to watch. It's out of this world to watch, and it really it moves. Yeah, it moves this movie through. So I don't know. Her shoulders must have hurt after filming this from carrying this fucking movie. But
there's a point, and I've seen this movie a few too many times, and you can't see it a few too many. No, it's fine. This is a movie that definitely, as most noirs, especially noirs with twists, they are best your first time, and then they will never be quite as good again, because it's about those moments where you are not expecting that thing around the corner and that fucked up thing happens. They're now watching it, it's like, yeah, she's putting him through hell, but how can he not find her sexy? Just give in. Just plot to bilk that rich family. Just go along with it already. That other lady, your fiance, who still left you anyway to go to LA, and follow her? Why are you still chasing her? She's boring. Just look like even Ann Savage, even when she's walking down that Palmdale highway, and those scenes were filmed in Palmdale, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sweater that doesn't fit her right. It's all kind of bursting open. It's like one side's too small and her hair's all messed up, and she just looks like she's pissed at you all the time. How can you not fall for that? She might kill you in your sleep, but what a way to go.
She says, don't I rate a whistle? The dialogue is so good in this movie too.
Yeah, is
that
Ulmer writing the dialogue? Because or I don't know. It's very quick and very funny. A lot of this movie.
I don't think he would have had a handle on it. Let's see who wrote the script to this.
It's Martin Goldsmith.
I mean, money. What is it? A piece of paper crawling with germs. I love that. That's so good. And
this movie, it's so nihilistic that they don't even give a shit about money. Ultimately,
No, he doesn't care.
I love once you go down the path of more Ulmer movies. Ulmer has this tendency to have lots of really grotesque punchlines in his movies, and there's two of them in here. There's the first guy that picks him up, and then there's the end of the movie with the telephone cord. And
don't say any more about that.
I won't.
Okay. Yeah.
and like Bob, I've seen this movie many times, but this was the first time I had seen the restored version. So it was kind of like watching it for the first time in some ways. Just the level of grime and sweat and the texture of the raindrops and the grit on everything. It was highly recommended to see if you can see the restored version. The first time I saw it, you could barely hear the dialogue, and you could barely see. It was in very rough shape. So kudos to those who restored this film.
The restoration is amazing, and I saw it. I was lucky enough to see it at BAM PFA in Berkeley, the Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archive, and I've seen. I watched it on Canopy this way. It's on Canopy and Criterion, the restored version, but I couldn't resist, guys. On Prime, there is a colorized version, and it's from one of the earlier terrible prints. And
oh my god.
This is probably going to sink me as a old movie weirdo a bit, but colorized movies are a bit of guilty pleasure in that I feel very guilty about them, but they are trippy. And I watched like the first 20 minutes or so of the colorized version on Prime, and it's like everybody looks like they're radioactive. Like they just are slapping color on it, like the color of the weird peach color of the white people's faces bleeds into the background in these terrible ways. It's so fucking awful. It is like getting a fine meal at your best Italian restaurant or French restaurant, and then just slathering everything in Miracle Whip is what watching.
Thanks, Ted Turner.
Yeah.
Was this a Ted Turner colorized job, or
it was no, that movie's kind of been in public domain or in and out of public domain or hanging on the edge of it, and somebody just took a shitty print, and they just slapped a bunch of digital color on it. Who knows when they did it? Did they do it in the 90s and the mid 2000s? They did it because they could, and that's what's on Prime. I couldn't resist watching it. Like I said, I could only get through like 15 minutes of it because I'm like, this is just too terrible. But I it's like a car accident on streaming. You have to watch.
Is this the best Ulmer film? Probably the most iconic.
I would say either this or The Black Cat.
I actually saw one on TCM that recently where it was like they went to the future, which was like 2022 or 3, and it was like a weird wasteland. Do you know the one I'm talking about? They just showed it on TCM.
Beyond the Time. That's like the first of his movies I saw, probably on Creature Features, called Beyond. It's called Beyond the Time Barrier, and I saw that on Creature Features, and even when I was like 10 years old or however old I was, it was just so weird to me. It was just this movie is like you even on creature features, even horror sci-fi movies of the past, which the past then was before 1980, because that's all there was. It was like I could tell this. I was drawn to it because it was different. I mean, it is just so low budget, and is it as good as George Pal's The Time Machine? No, but it's definitely weirder.
Beyond the Time Barrier.
I don't know. I kind of like Beyond the Time Barrier, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah. The other Ulmer ones that are kind of closer to Detour, there's one that he directed called Murder Is My Beat. That's pretty good. 10 years later, and that's about a nightclub singer, Corey. So he did a good adaptation of Bluebeard with John Carradine, the famous woman strangler Bluebeard.
And it might just be because I'm reading like monster movie magazines, but in the 80s, that would be, besides the Black Cat, that would be the one that would get talked about the most. That was like his, maybe even a little more than Detour for a while. That was like, oh, this is a B movie, zero budget discovery. That movie had a moment for a while, kind of on the revival film circuit, the retro film circuit. There's also Man from Planet X, another zero budget sci-fi movie of his. The Transparent Man, and he did after the Black Cat, he seduced away the wife of one of the Lemleys, the people who owned Universal. He stole the wife of one of the Lemley nephews, and so he was kind of blacklisted from the industry. He was on the outs from the industry and never quite recovered. And before he hooked up with Producers Releasing Corporation, PRC, the zero budget, most poverty stricken of the Poverty Row studios, he went back east. He went to New York, and he was directing like race films. He directed films for African Americans and Yiddish language films.
Oy vey.
Oh wow!
So you could pull up his IMDb
titles.
Moon Over Harlem is the African American one.
I watched that this week.
Oh, how is that?
Well, the only prints available of Moon Over Harlem look like shit, like really bad picture quality. And the audio quality is bad. It's on Tubi right now, believe it or not, but I still enjoyed it because I thought there was a lot there. It felt very authentic. It's an all-black cast, and it's made in 1939. And so just getting a window into that community at that time period is fascinating stuff. And there are a couple of the Ulmer trademarks where he's got those tracking shots where people will just be chilling on a couch, but he feels the need to take the camera from one doorway and then slowly push it through the room just to people having a conversation. And it's that extra mile that makes it cool to watch even the crummiest version that's available.
Nice.
So what kind of weed would you smoke with Detour? Corey, you go first, then Felina, then Greg, or then Justin, then Greg. Let's all
right, for Detour, it's a quick watch, and it's a jazz age, like really buzzy, like hey, hard boiled kind of thing. So I wanted to smoke like the guy does in Reefer Madness, where he's just like frantically smoking a joint. So I suggest a low THC thing that you could just smoke a lot of. I picked the lamb's bread flower. It was originally produced in Africa by way of Jamaica. Lamb's bread is said to have been among Bob Marley's favorite strain. It's an uplifting weed that makes you feel creative. It's a sativa that makes you feel introspective yet active, and that's whether writing music, hiking the mountains, or watching Ulmer movies. Lamb's bread is my recommendation for Detour.
Nice. I was smoking I got this big pack of 14-gram Canna Botanica. This stuff, I've been loving it. This is okay. Canna Botanica. This is apple fritter, the strain. It is a hybrid. I've been getting these 14-gram, like half ounce bags, and just making rolling so many joints. And I've been having so much fun. So this strain specifically makes my body feel very relaxed, but my mind still active, which makes I feel it was perfect for Detour because I was just sitting and staring. But I was still thinking, which is nice.
Justin.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Felina on this one, to kind of have your body relaxed and your mind thinking. I had a kind of higher THC hybrid that's about 50-50 sativa and indica called Southside Legend. But I've also seen Detour a couple times, so I knew what I was in for. So I just wanted to sink into the couch and be refamiliarized with everything. I think that a hybrid probably would be the best, just to kind of get your body fully relaxed and let the sativa elements kind of work your brain, get stuff thinking, because I think some of the shocks that happen later in the movie benefit from being a little spaced out. So,
and Greg,
Nice.
quickly, there's no time.
I had I vaped some lemon margie, and it's a pretty high THC indica dominant hybrid. And I thought it was great. Of course, I've seen Detour many times, probably over 5 times. So it kind of got me relaxed in the zone, and I appreciated the visuals and kind of sunk into the couch and into a pit of despair simultaneously.
Before we move on, I have one TikTok to talk about. So I found only one TikTok that mentioned Detour, and it was basically a compilation of film noir slang. And the quote that they used for this one was, "Remember, we're both in the soup if anything happens." And the comments were pretty minimal also, but someone said, "Noir is so good." That's it.
Well, speaking of slang in this movie, they say, I'm going to get tight. We're getting tight. Is tight means drunk, right? All right. I didn't know. I never heard that before. So now I know.
Detour is streaming without ads on Canopy and Criterion Channel, and free with ads on Tubi, Roku Channel, and Pluto. Plus, there's a blasphemous colorized print on Prime if you really need to go there. Bob Calhoun.
The shock and shame story of a night girl, starring Constance Towers. The Naked Kiss, a motion picture not for the squeamish, but powerful entertainment for those who enjoy reality in the raw.
When I came to this town, I was a prostitute. Next morning, I quit. Those bonbons aren't there just to serve drinks, you know.
I know.
Get compliments, clothes, cash. You'll meet men you live on, and men who live on you. And those are the only men you'll meet.
The Naked Kiss, when a woman bears what she really is.
What were your relations with this woman?
I was her business manager.
Darling, when I ask you a question, I want the right answer!
I washed my face clean the morning I woke up in your bedroom.
You got morals in my room?
I saw a broken down piece of machinery. Nothing but the buck, the bed, and the bottle for the rest of my life. I'm trying your side of the fence. Is there a law against it? Is there anything wrong with it?
And And for our second feature, we have Constance Towers as a vengeful ex-hooker who dishes out beatings to pimps and madams and tries to go legit by becoming a nurse to children with disabilities, only to find out that polite society hides secrets more twisted than anything you'd find in the sleaziest brothel. From Sam Fuller, the two-fisted cigar-chomping bringer of the raw and the real, and Hollywood's patron saint of society's outcasts. From 1964, we have The Naked Kiss. This is like a hard-boiled women's picture, so I want to hand this off to Felina first. Felina, thoughts on The Naked Kiss?
I lean more towards liking it than I do hating it, because a lot of it is, the time. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I think I might have been, at first, I think I was too stoned, and then by the end of it, I was not stoned enough. I got way too high at the beginning. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that makes your heart hurt. Kind of makes your heart feel like it's sinking into your stomach. So it was a little bit hard to watch, but overall I really did enjoy the story, and I really loved the acting. And I think also it was Constance Towers' birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. She's 89.
She's still with us, right?
She's still alive. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Constance Towers.
Good for her.
Mazel tov.
Awesome.
She's so good in this, and it's rare even for a movie now. It may be a little more common now post Kill Bill and all that, but for female rage, to that character that exhibits female rage to still be the sympathetic character.
Her acting was really amazing in this. She was really cool.
What an opening, huh? What a opening.
Yeah.
That's probably the coolest opening
I felt
I've ever
so
seen.
intrigued. Yeah.
It opens with her just beating the shit out of her pimp. It tells so much with so little dialogue. And then the big reveal is that she's bald and her wig falls off during this fight, and we don't know why. And it's striking. And then she fixes her wig and fixes her makeup while the credits run over her face in this amazing shot that she starts off looking like a fucking mess, and by the end of the credits she's like super beautiful, and it's very effective, and I was knocked out by that opening scene. This is the first time I've ever seen this, probably my first Fuller film. What's his biggest movie?
Pick Up on South Street.
Yeah, okay. I ain't never heard of that in my life.
with Richard Widmark. It's definitely a movie we'll get to at some point. And
Shock Corridor.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
A Big Red One is the one that was made maybe during your lifetime. I'm not quite sure on that, but The Big Red One, which is this big World War II movie that Mark Hamill is in from 19. No,
the Big Red One's about this dog, Clifford. Anyway.
Yeah.
This movie deals with so much dark shit. It's fun. This movie's funny as fuck. There's so many funny lines in this movie. There's one line where the madam in this cat house is like, yeah, she used to be a platinum blonde, but I made her change her hair color back to her peasant hair, which is very funny. Anyway, this movie is very funny, but it's so melodramatic and shiny and beautiful and romantic, like a soap opera, but it has all this dark shit underneath. And I'm sure David Lynch watched this movie and learned a lot from this movie, because it nails that sinister. There's sinister stuff going on beneath the surface of these beautiful houses and these beautiful people. So this movie kind of knocked me out. I love that it's very in the style of melancholy soap opera. It worked for me. I love how stuff just happens. She's a hooker, and now she's a nurse, and now she's fallen in love. I don't need a big buildup. I don't need a bunch of exposition. I like when stuff just happens, and it happens really fast in this movie, and it's fine. I bought into it because just the dreamlike way it is handled, acting, it just worked for me. There's so many hot babes in this movie, and every guy in this movie is super ugly. So I just want to let everybody know that. A lot of black and white. yeah, there's that opening scene really knocked me out, and then the scene where there's a scene where Constance Towers kicks the shit out of a madam, which really also knocked me out. This movie does that thing that Night of the Hunter does, where it's like really dark and sinister, and then like it's a bunch of kids singing, and it turns a little Disney movie. But it works in this movie. I hate when kids sing. I love the song that the kids sing in this movie, and it's really effective.
Amazing,
right? And it is super precursor to like 70s revenge films, and I love a revenge film, and this is a very early version of that, and I loved it. This is everything I like about movies, so I really love The Naked Kiss.
Justin, talk a little bit about The Naked Kiss and Sam Fuller. You probably have some things about Sam Fuller to say there.
Yeah, so this was a first-time watch for me as well. Sam Fuller, up until recently, was kind of a blind spot for me. I had seen his 80s movie, White Dog, years and years ago, and really liked that. But this whole period of mid-60s for him, with The Naked Kiss, and I think is Shot Corridor the next year.
Let's see. Shot Corridor is the year before, because this is part of the SFCU, Ben Fuller Cinematic Universe. There's a lot of verticals going on here, because the novel that Constance Towers is reading is his yellow journalism novel. And when she gets to town, the movie playing at the theater is Shot Corridor. So that's on the marquee.
Oh, yeah. I love that shot. And I mean, Shot Corridor, I think, is one of like the top 10 movies of the 1960s, like hands down. That movie is incredible, and it just punches you in the gut. And this movie, like Corey was saying, that opening scene reminded me a lot of Jeff Lieberman's Blue Sunshine. With the wig coming off. Oh, she's bald. And then what Corey was talking about, the credits just over her face reminded me a lot of Jean-Luc Godard. And there's a lot in this movie that did kind of remind me of the early 60s French New Wave. I don't actually know how Samuel Fuller felt about the French New Wave. He might have like beat me up for saying that, but there was a lot of that influence that I saw in there. And I had heard of this. I had heard like the basic plot of this. I kind of knew what was coming. Not every twist and turn, and certainly not the last twist, but Constance Towers, her performance in this is just incredible. Like, she has to do so much, and she's on screen so much, and it's just mind-blowing stuff from her in this. There were plenty of times when when all the physically disabled children are all up on their crutches and start singing that song, and there's all the close-ups of their faces, I just put my hands on my head and was like, just such bravado filmmaking from Samuel Fuller. Just incredible stuff. The camera work was great. I liked Michael Dante as JL Grant in this, the wealthy kind of biggest figurehead in the town.
He's the philanthropist.
Yeah,
he
did a great job.
He switches like his face turns into a different face when his heel turn. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Absolutely. I recognized Edie Williams in there.
Oh yeah,
one of the girls, one of the stars from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. She's in this for like 5 minutes.
Was she the one that comes out and she's like, "Thanks for getting me the job, Griff"? Was that her?
Yes.
Dude, she's awesome.
Yes. Oh my
I'd like
God.
to strap you on sometime.
Yeah.
Oh
my God, it's just so good.
I really, really, really loved this. This is 5 stars all day from me. I think, like I said, Naked Kiss, Shot Corridor, those 2 movies back to back. I can't think of another director who had such strong 1-2 back to back like that. Just incredible stuff. And I was actually wondering, Bob or Greg or any of you guys know, what happens to Constance Towers? Because I don't really know her career that well, but looking at her IMDb, it looks like she stopped working after this movie for like 20 years.
There's an interview with her on Criterion that's about this movie, but unfortunately it is just to this movie, and she might mention what happens to her. I mean, a lot of times women just kind of, because they got tired of producers trying to put their hands on them, and then they got married and wanted to have kids and all kinds of combinations thereof, they just left for a while. You know, it can be, especially for women, can be a hard life, and unnecessarily so. But
yeah, I'm just curious because I just checked, and she's in The Naked Kiss in '64, and then she's not in another movie until 1985.
Wow. Greg, have you seen this one before?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies of the 60s. I kind of put it in this subcategory that I've kind of curated a little bit, which I call woke trash of the 1960s. There's a few movies that are kind of like this, like Private Property, The Incident. I would put Shot Corridor in that.
The Intruder.
The Intruder
from episode 1. Yeah.
These are movies that are essentially exploitation movies, but have a social conscience. Whether or not it's handled properly in the movie is a whole nother matter. But there is kind of a social issue that is kind of being worked out in the Experiment in Terror. I would put in there Blake Edwards. I love these movies, and this is absolutely one of my favorites. It's hard to pin down, and I don't know a whole lot about Fuller the man, but I kind of assume that he's a little bit like John Ford. Like, don't try to put your artistic assumptions on me, like that famous Bogdanovich interview where he's just like, "You're full of shit, Bogdanovich," like trying to ask what this movie's about. It's about Westerns. I kind of assume that Fuller is a bit like that in terms of the creativity, but because he's so two-fisted, is such a cigar chomping guy with journalism and stuff, but his heart is so much in the right place that it's a really fascinating dichotomy between the wokeness and the exploitation to me. And there's something about it that is part soap opera, part melodrama, and yet literally, and without giving anything away, the subject matter could not be any darker. Like, it really cannot be any darker. So I find it really fascinating, and it's one of my favorite movies of his. I haven't seen all the Fuller movies, but this is right up there. I love it.
Dad, you're such an ass. No.
I know.
No.
She's kind of pretentious.
He is pretentious. He is pretentious. We don't need to bring this up now, but you are. And it's not a bad thing.
Sick bird. You need some ice for that bird, Dad?
Thing. I do. I need to sit on it.
Spin.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I definitely it is something I feel like I feel like you should be mentally prepared before you watch it. It's all I'm saying. Like, you should watch it, but you should be mentally prepared.
That's a really good point, because I feel like there are many movies that we cover on this podcast where you can start the movie and start rolling your joint or start smoking weed at the same time that your movie experience begins, your weed experience can begin, so that even if you're not fully high until the end of Act 1, it's okay. This movie, very different. You need to pregame this movie, for all the potheads out there. You need the intro to this movie to smack you in the face and blow your mind right off the bat. Like, if you don't, you may not feel like getting stoned after.
So while we're there, Greg, what weed would you smoke with it?
Oh man. Well, I stuck with the lemon margie on this. That's the weed I have right now. I'm not the expert of like pairing, but it's great. Like, I honestly think that you can't go wrong with any kind of weed with this movie. Like, you can smoke whatever you got. It's a great stoner film. It's surreal as fuck. It's dark as fuck. And so yeah, I literally think you can't go wrong. But I really enjoyed the lemon margie.
Justin.
Yeah, so before the movie started, I had some Camino brand cannabis gummies, sativa dominant hybrid. I had the pineapple habanero flavor because I wanted to be sharp. I wanted mostly sativa because I had not seen it, and I wanted to be sharp. I wanted to make sure that I was catching all the details of the plot as it was happening. And that worked pretty well for me throughout the movie until it started to get too dark. And then I was like, holy shit. And then I pulled out the Southside Legend again and just got ripped for the last 25 minutes. And it was terrifying. I would recommend that's probably a sativa dominant hybrid. That's kind of where my head's at on it.
I feel like my pick would pair really well with Justin's jalapeno pineapple Camino gummies. I drank a 4-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon, has a new weed seltzer, and I drank the mango. Mango blood orange seltzer. They're 10 milligrams each. They're like 0 calories. I'm on a diet. It got me plenty. I pre-gamed 2 of them, and then I drank the other 2 during the movie. Highly recommend Pabst Blue Ribbon new weed seltzer.
So, like my dad, listen, I'm 21. I'm balling on a budget. I'm again, this thing is like $80 and it's more than 2 of those little guys. So, Cannabotanica, 14 grams. Yes. Because I wasn't stoned enough at the end, I would probably recommend also like using a vape like while like smoking during.
Keep it up.
Just keep it up. There was one TikTok and it was a clip of the intro where she was like, take the $75. I'm only taking the $75. Okay, the first comment was like, I would have taken interest. This is the difference between old women. We know better now. He owes every last dime. Then awesome. But he gave you an $85 haircut. That is the next. That is the next.
You know, it was a good device to show that she was a hooker with a heart of gold, though. You know what I mean? She ain't gonna
definitely. And the last one that I will say is Will and Jada ? Is what somebody else said. On very bad.
I got a text from Justin last night who was like, yo, check out that wine glass she's drinking out of. How about that wine glass? It looks just like a bong.
There's a lot of parts in this movie. Like, she is awesome. Constance Towers. The violence, the bursts of violence, and her weapon of choice being a stiletto. And just the way that she explodes in unexpected violence is almost like John Wick like levels. Like, she is almost like I mean her character is just fantastic, and her scene with the owner of the madame of the brothel is a great scene of just an explosion of violence. I love that.
I mean, it's a steady shot of her just kicking the shit out of someone, and the set falls apart around her, and it's so visceral. And it's like, I wanted to say world star. Well, that happened. Like, it's like,
oh my God.
Yeah, then it balances that out in this way that's somewhat discordant with the creepy, weird, sad musical number with the children with disabilities. But then there's also that dream sequence where the town's benefactor, they're talking about Venice, and it's like this Venice dream romantic.
It's so cool. Yeah, and you know what, it all works. It's all the same language, and it's all very cinematic, and it's kind of what I want movies to always be.
The Naked Kiss is streaming on Prime, not colorized this time, Criterion Channel, HBO Max, Tubi, and Canopy, a free video streaming service available from participating public libraries. Ask your librarian about it and sign up.
If you like the show, please subscribe on SoundCloud, Apple, or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Old Movies for Young Stoners or on Twitter at OM4 Y Stoners. That's OM4Y Stoners. Please stay in touch.
Hey, Justin, thanks so much for stopping by and thanks for supporting the show. How can people get a hold of you? And is there anything else coming up at the Esquire Theatre that our listeners should watch out for?
Thank you guys so much for letting me on the show. Like I said up top, I super appreciate what you guys do with the show, recommending old movies. You can find me. I am on Instagram and Twitter under No Fun Justin. I'm on Letterboxd as well under my name. The record store that I curate and manage the movie section at is Torn Light Records here in Cincinnati, tornlightrecords.com, and we're on social media. As far as upcoming screenings go, like you said, I'm not sure when this episode drops, but we're doing one of the biggest weed movies of all time, The Harder They Come, this coming Wednesday, the 25th at 7:30 p.m. And then June, we do our screenings the last Wednesday of every month at the Esquire. Our June screening is New York Ninja, the recently completed Vinegar Syndrome ninja movie that is a lot of fun. And in July, we're doing one of my favorite revisionist 90s westerns, Mario Van Peebles' Posse. And I'm very excited about that. So, yeah. Torn Light Records.
Now, Justin, are people allowed to come to your screenings high?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So that wraps up what will be the first of probably many forays into film noir on old movies for young stoners. But hey, everybody, you know what else is coming to the Esquire Theatre at 320 Ludlow Avenue in Cincinnati?
No, Bob. What's coming
to the
Esquire
Theatre at
320 Ludlow Avenue
in Cincinnati.
Baz Luhrmann's Elvis is coming to the Esquire Theatre and a theater near you. And so it is time for our Elvis episode.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it's finally time for our Elvis episode. We talked about this way back in episode 2 of Old Movies for Young Stoners. And so next time, first we'll have the King of Rock and Roll hanging out with mariachis and romancing Ursula Andress in Fun in Acapulco. Then we switch gears for a bit of Elvis Panic, where Kubrick's favorite character actor, Tim Carey, becomes a very Elvis-like cult leader in The World's Greatest Sinner. Be here in 2 weeks, give or take, for a hunk of burning weed on Old Movies for Young Stoners. We hear the trailer, which the trailer is pretty good on this one because I hate it when a trailer doesn't have lots of voiceover and thrill too, because when you're listening to it, you want that stupid voiceover.
I love when they talk about the actors, like as the actors, they're like, oh, and this guy, he's so handsome. You've seen him before. He's very friendly. He's friends with Liza Minnelli. He's cool. Like,
yes.
I love when they like just talk about the actor.
They need to do that more.
He's a Scientologist. He does all his own stunts. You know him. You love him. He divorced. He hasn't seen his kid Suri in 4 years.
Yeah. Top Gun Maverick. Thrill to the greatest in aviation photography, courtesy of the U.S. Navy.